Hello and welcome back to another episode of Hammer Down Ranks. So here on this channel, if you are new, you haven't been here before, we rank albums from loads of different rock and metal bands. So if you enjoy this kind of content, please do like and subscribe. It makes a big difference. We're trying to push for 100 subscribers at the moment. And our latest episode today, we're ranking the 6 albums from Mississippi post-grunge band Three Doors Down. So Three Doors Down were formed in 1996 in Mississippi and were very much in the wave of post-grunge bands that came about this time period alongside bands like Creed, Puddle of Mudd, Stained and Nickelback. Originally comprised of Brad Arnold on vocals and drums, if you didn't know, Matt Roberts on lead guitar and Todd Harrell on bass. Not long after, they recruited Chris Henderson to take up rhythm guitar duties. Now, whilst listening to Nickelback on YouTube about 15 years ago, I stumbled upon the music video for Kryptonite, which was not only their debut single but one of the biggest songs of the band's career, and I fell in love with the band and I've really enjoyed them ever since. So the band have been going for nearly 30 years at this point. The bands do a lot, including going out and playing regularly in war zones like Iraq and Afghanistan for US troops. They also have the Better Life Foundation. Every single year they host a big show where artists like Stained, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Alter Bridge, Shinedown and many more have contributed. The Better Life Foundation has certainly been a good use of their time and money and has helped children all across America. Really awesome cause. But today what we're going to do is we're going to rank the 6 records that they released between 2000 and 2016. To me, this video is seriously difficult to put together because I actually really like all 6 albums here. They're all incredibly close for me. It was a really tough call to put them in the right order. Every single one of their records has 1 or 2 songs that I would personally put amongst their top 10 songs ever in a greatest hits record, if you like, which means it's been really hard to narrow down and put them in the right order. So please understand if your favourite album is number 6 or 5 or 4, I still really like it. So let's get into it. And we're going to go with number 6, 2016's Us and the Night. Us and the Night made it to number 14 in the US Billboard charts and number 60 here in the UK, and is the most recent album the band has put out. It's the first album to feature Chet Roberts on guitar after Matt stepped away to focus on his health. It also features Justin Biltonen on bass after Todd Harrell committed vehicular homicide and ended up killing a 47-year-old man in a car accident whilst under the influence, and he was sentenced to a few years in jail for that crime. So that meant there was a really long period of time between 2011's Time of My Life and 2016's Us and the Night. A lot had happened in those 5 years, a big lineup change, a tumultuous period, and perhaps that contributed to the fact that this album is number 6. The first single was the very catchy In the Dark, really cool song all about shagging. We like that. Living in Your Hell, which is another really catchy tune. I like that one very much. But my favourite song on the album, which I would definitely put in my top favourite songs from the band ever, Inside of Me. That song is absolutely beautiful, really great track. So why does this end up on number 6? Well, although it has a handful of really good songs on it, there are a couple of songs that just sound a little bit tired, a little bit uninspired and unimaginative. Certain parts of the album feel like they've just lost their touch a little bit, and that's okay after a career of multi-platinum albums. It's alright to have a little bit of a flop on your 6th record, I think. Overall, just to be clear, I don't think the album is a flop. It's still a really great record and I like many of the songs on it. It's just not as good as the latest stuff. So let's move straight on to number 5. Controversial, 2000's The Better Life. So the band in the late 90s recorded a 3-track demo which was released 1,000 copies initially on CD and then 1,000 more later on, which featured Kryptonite. Now, once they were signed to major label Universal, they then recorded Kryptonite as part of the album The Better Life and released it as their debut official single, and it went viral. It has been platinum 7 times in the US, twice platinum in Canada and platinum in Australia, and it reached number 7 in the US Billboard charts. 3 of the 4 singles made it onto the Billboard 100 singles chart, including my personal favourite from the album, Be Like That. And the album also features the infamous song Loser and some really great songs that I personally am a big fan of, By My Side and The Better Life. So why is this album in number 5? Even though it featured Kryptonite, which has 471 million YouTube views to date, 982 million Spotify streams to date of today recording this video. By the time a lot of you are watching it, it would have surpassed 1 billion streams, which is just insane. Well, not all of the album is that great. Like a lot of debut records, although there's some real magic in there that makes the band skyrocket, there are also numbers in there that just aren't quite as good. And that's absolutely okay. It's a debut album. The band were obviously very young at the time. Interestingly, this is the only record that features Brad Arnold on drums. He soon took vocal duty after this, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But overall, great record. My 5th favourite of all of the Three Doors Down Down albums. Moving on to number 4, and it's 2005's 17 Days. The tricky third album. Everybody knows that the third album was always the hardest one, but it was their first number 1 on Billboard. It's also been certified platinum in the US and gold in various other countries across the globe. The awesome song and lovely video for Landing in London features Bob Seger, a fantastic composition with some orchestral scores written in there as well. The album also features It's Not Me and my personal favourite from the record, Behind Those Eyes. Live for Today is also another amazing tune. Really love the chorus in that song. Now, interestingly, this is the only album to feature Daniel Adair on drums. Richard Lills had left the band. He was the man who took over drumming responsibilities from Brad Arnold a little while ago. So this is the only record with Daniel Adair on. Now, of course, we know what happens to Daniel Adair. He ends up going off to join Nickelback. So his only work with the band is here on this album, 17 Days. So overall, 17 Days is a wonderful record. And before we get into the top 3, we're just going to talk about my festival of the week, Stonedead Festival. So Stonedead takes place at Newark Showground and has been going on for about 5 years now. They have had a whole range of classic metal bands like Saxon, the Choir Boys, Michael Schenker, a whole range of really awesome stuff. I'm big into my classic metal at the moment, so this is like my dream festival. I'm going to try and get down there next year in some way, shape or form. The whole premise of the festival was to base it around Monsters of Rock and create their own Monsters of Rock. It's 5,000 capacity, one hell of a festival and definitely worth you checking out. Look at some of these different lineup posters around me. You need to get yourself to Stonedead Festival. Now, I'm pretty sure 2025 is already sold out, or at least it's about to, but keep an eye on resale sites because it's an awesome looking festival and I'm so desperate to get down there. But now we're going to get ourselves back to the top 3 Three Doors Down records. And in number 3 is 2011's Time of My Life. So Time of My Life, it charted at 65 in the UK and made it to number 3 in the US Billboard 200 charts. It sold over 220,000 copies to date and features a whole range of my favourite songs, but in particular, Every Time You Go. That is definitely my favourite from the record. I would put that in the top 10 Three Doors Down songs ever. But also the catchy Round and Round, Time of My Life, as well as some absolute belters like Back to Me and the closing track of the record, The Silence Remains, which is an absolutely awesome piece of work. This album is good front to back. I have no issues with it at all, and that's why it makes it into the number 3 spot. The only reason that it isn't in the top 2 is simply because I think there are more of my favourite classic songs on the last 2 albums we're going to talk about. The one sort of ultimate 10 out of 10 song on this particular album for me is Every Time You Go. So in number 2, we've got 2002's Away from the Sun. So this was the first record where Brad had stepped away from the drumming role and moved solely onto vocals, and Richard Lills had been recruited into the band as the drummer. Although Josh Freese is credited as playing the drums on the album when it was recorded. The album kicks off with one of my favourites, When I'm Gone. I love that song. Away from the Sun is another fantastic tune. Really like that song. But we all know what the big one was from this record. It's of course Here Without You. To date, it's their second most streamed track on Spotify with 686 million streams, but the music video is 899 million views in, which means it will be their first music video to surpass the billion mark very soon. Outrageous achievement. Very few bands could ever say they've achieved that many views and streams. Here Without You is a love song for a generation. One of the defining love songs from the post-grunge genre, with a couple of Nickelback ones in there probably. It's a wonderful tune, an absolute 10 out of 10. But there's many tracks in this album that are really good. However, why is this album not number 1? Well, I think the album runs out of steam after the first 8 tracks, and the last 4 on the record just aren't quite as good. Sarah Yellin, for example, was recorded way back years before even the first album dropped and was put on at the end of this album. I don't think it's a particularly great song, and a couple of the songs towards the end of the record, to me, just don't quite do it. So number 1 really has to be the perfect record, and it is the self-titled album from 2008, Three Doors Down. Their second number 1 album in the US. It's certified gold in Canada, Germany, and of course the United States. It sold over 1 million copies to date worldwide, and it kicks off with the great song Train. I like that song very much. Citizen Soldier, an interesting composition, a little bit different to anything they'd put out before. I do like that song quite a lot. The big one from the record, It's Not My Time. What a tune. Fantastically catchy chorus. Big motivational song. Great tune. Pages is another really good one, but Give It To Me is my favourite song from the record. An absolute masterpiece. So this was the first album after Daniel Ada had stepped away and moved over to Nickelback, and so Greg Upchurch from Puddle of Mudd, another post-grunge band, had stepped into the fray and worked on the drums for Three Doors Down's best album. I love this record. I think it's definitely the most complete in their catalogue from front to back. It's really, really good all the way through. It doesn't have the rawness of the early stuff and the tiredness of the later stuff. It is the perfect Three Doors Down album. In my opinion, one of the best post-grunge albums there is, and I'm a big, big fan of that genre of music. So what has happened to the band since? Well, after Us on the Night in 2016, the band played Donald Trump's inauguration. That will either make you love or hate them more. They've been touring, working hard, they've been teasing new singles, possibly an EP. They've said at times that albums just don't really have the market at the moment, which is probably true. And so the only thing that they've released was their acoustic Back Porch Jam EP in 2019, but there haven't been any new songs for a good long time now. Who knows if we're going to get another Three Doors Down album? Obviously, I sincerely hope so. Those 6 albums are really, really great. Three Doors Down were one of the first bands I ever got into alongside Nickelback, Green Day. They were the very, very first bands I ever came across. They were a guide into alternative music. I love this band, and if they have a 7th album up their sleeve, release it, please. Three Doors Down. Before we go, I'd also like to pay a massive tribute to Matt Roberts, who passed away in 2016, not long after the release of the final record, which is very, very sad. So this video is absolutely tribute to Matt and all of the work that he did over the years. What an excellent musician. Thanks all for watching, and do check us out in the next episode. We really, really appreciate it. Please do like and subscribe, and stay in touch for more very, very soon.